Good evening, and welcome to another journey through the quiet corridors of history with the History Hub. Tonight, we invite you to settle into the creaking, candlelit world of colonial America, place of spinning wheels, wind-swept fields, and forgotten dreams. Imagine yourself nestled beneath a quilt, the weight of the day slipping away as we wander through the lives of weavers, rebels, and settlers who shaped a fledgling world. This is not a tale of grand battles or glittering courts, but of ordinary moments, woven together like threads in a homespun cloth. Let the steady rhythm of their lives guide you gently toward rest. Close your eyes if you wish, breathe deeply, and let us begin with the humble, relentless work of a colonial weaver. Picture yourself in a small, drafty cabin in Massachusetts, sometime in the late 17th century. It's dawn, and the air is sharp with the chill of early autumn. You are a weaver, one of countless souls in this rugged New England colony, tasked with turning raw wool into cloth. Your world is defined by the rhythmic clack of a wooden loom, the weight of a spindle in your hand, and the endless demand for fabric to clothe a growing settlement. Life here is not glamorous, nor is it kind. To be a weaver in colonial America is to know a particular kind of toil, one that binds you to your tools, your home, and the unyielding needs of your community. You rise before the sun, stirring the embers in the hearth to coax a meager flame. The room is dim, lit only by the faint glow of tallow candles, their smoky scent mingling with the damp, woody aroma of the cabin's pine walls. Your fingers, already calloused from years of work, fumble to pull on a coarse linen shift and a woolen petticoat, garments you wove yourself. Breakfast is simple cornmeal mush, perhaps sweetened with a drizzle of molasses if you're fortunate. There's no time to linger. The day's labor beckons. Your loom sits in the corner, a hulking frame of oak that dominates the small space. It's a contraption of beams and petals, strung with taut threads that tremble slightly in the draft. You settle onto a hard stool, your back already aching from yesterday's hours at this very spot. The work begins with the shuttle, a smooth piece of wood that you pass back and forth, weaving the weft through the warp. Each motion is deliberate, repetitive, almost hypnotic. Clack, slide, clack, slide. The rhythm is the heartbeat of your day, a sound that fills the cabin from dawn to dusk. But this work is not as simple as it seems. Before you even sit at the loom, there are countless tasks to prepare the materials. Imagine yourself carding wool, dragging a wire-toothed comb through tangled fleeces until your arms burn. The wool, fresh from the sheep, is greasy with lanolin, and bits of straw and burrs cling stubbornly to the fibers. You spend hours cleaning and combing, transforming the chaotic mass into smooth, fluffy rolls ready for spinning. Then comes the spinning itself, a task that demands both patience and precision. You stand at a spinning wheel, feeding the wool with one hand, while the other turns the wheel, coaxing a fine, even thread. The wheel hums softly, but your shoulders stiffen and your eyes strain in the dim light. The thread, once spun, must be dyed, a process that fills the cabin with the sharp tang of boiled madder, root, or indigo. You stir heavy pots over the fire, your hands stained blue or red, the heat making your brow prickle with sweat. Only then can you set up the loom, threading hundreds of warp strands through tiny heddles, a task that tests your dexterity and your temper. A single misstep can tangle the entire setup, costing hours to correct. This cycle, carding, spinning, dyeing, weaving, repeats endlessly, broken only by the seasons, or the needs of the household. You are not just a weaver, but a cook, a cleaner, a mender of clothes, and, if you have children, a caretaker. The loom pauses when the fire needs tending, or when a neighbor arrives to barter for a length of cloth. You trade your fabric for necessities, grain, salt, or perhaps a new iron pot butt. The exchange is rarely equal. The colony's economy is stretched thin, and your labor is undervalued, a necessity taken for granted. The physical toll is unrelenting. Your hands, rough and cracked, ache from gripping the shuttle. Your back protests the hours spent hunched over the loom, and your eyes grow weary from squinting at fine threads in poor light. The cabin offers little comfort. It's cold in winter, stifling in summer, and the constant dampness seeps into your bones. Illness is a constant threat: fever, dysentery, or the dreaded smallpox that sweeps through villages like a silent thief. Medical care is scarce, and you rely on herbal remedies and prayers, hoping to avoid the fate of neighbors who succumbed to the last outbreak. Yet there is a quiet pride in your work. The cloth you weave, sturdy woolen broadcloth, or fine linen clothes your family and your neighbors. It's a tangible thing, something you can touch and see, a small defiance against the wilderness that surrounds you. You know the names of the sheep whose wool you spin, the fields where the flax was grown. Your labor is part of the colony's survival, a thread in the fabric of this new world. But survival is precarious. Taxes, paid in grain or labor, weigh heavily, and the Puritan Church demands your time and devotion. Sundays are for sermons, long and somber, in a meeting house where the wooden pews are as unforgiving as the minister's gaze. You must conform, or risk suspicion. Whispers of witchcraft or heresy can ruin a family. The community is tight-knit, but it is also watchful, and you feel the pressure to be pious, industrious, and uncomplaining. As night falls, you work by candlelight. The looms clack, blending with the chirp of crickets outside. The world beyond your cabin is vast, and uncertain rumors of native raids, harsh winters, or failed harvests keep you vigilant. Yet, in this moment, there is only the loom, the thread, the rhythm. You are bound to this life, to its hardships and its small victories, and as you weave, you are part of something larger, something enduring. Let us leave the weaver's cabin now, the clack of the loom fading into the night. Our journey through colonial America continues, and we turn next to a woman whose voice dared to challenge the rigid order of her world. Imagine a meeting house in Boston, filled with the murmurs of a restless crowd, as Anne Hutchinson steps forward to speak. Picture yourself in a small, drafty cabin in Massachusetts, sometime in the late 17th century. Around 1680, it's dawn, and the air carries the sharp, crisp bite of an autumn morning, the kind that seeps through the chinks in the cabin's log walls. You are a weaver, one of countless souls in this rugged New England colony, tasked with turning raw wool and flax into cloth. Your world is defined by the rhythmic clack of a wooden loom, the faint whir of a spinning wheel, and the endless demand for fabric to clothe a growing settlement. Life here is not glamorous, nor is it forgiving. To be a weaver in colonial America is to know a particular kind of toil, one that binds you to your tools, your home, and the unyielding needs of your community, a constant rhythm of labor that shapes every moment of your day. You rise before the sun, stirring the embers in the hearth to coax a meager flame. The room is dim, lit only by the faint flickering glow of tallow candles, their smoky scent mingling with the damp, woody aroma of the cabin's pine walls and the earthy temps of the dirt floor beneath your feet. Your fingers, already calloused and rough from years of work, fumble to pull on a coarse linen shift and a heavy woolen petticoat, garments you wove yourself over countless evenings. The fabric scratches against your skin, a reminder of the labor embedded in every thread. Breakfast is simple cornmeal mush, perhaps sweetened with a drizzle of molasses if the harvest was kind this year. If not, it's plain, gritty, and barely enough to quiet the gnawing in your stomach. There's no time to linger. The day's labor beckons, and the light, though faint, is precious. Your loom sits in the corner of the cabin, a hulking frame of oak that dominates the small, cluttered space. It's a contraption of beams, pedals, and pulleys, strung with taut threads that tremble slightly in the draft, slipping through the unshuttered window. You settle onto a hard, uneven stool, your back already protesting from yesterday's hours spent in this very spot. The work begins with the shuttle, a smooth, worn piece of wood that you pass back and forth, weaving the weft through the warp with practiced precision. Each motion is deliberate, repetitive, almost hypnotic. Clack, slide, clack, slide. The rhythm is the heartbeat of your day, a sound that fills the cabin from dawn to dusk, blending with the creak of the floorboards and the occasional snap of a log in the fire. But this work is far from simple. Before you even sit at the loom, there are countless tasks to prepare the materials, each as demanding as the weaving itself. Imagine yourself carding wool, dragging a wire-toothed comb through tangled fleeces until your arms burn and your shoulders ache. The wool, fresh from the village's sheep, is greasy with lanolin, its musky scent clinging to your hands. Bits of straw, burrs, and even dried mud cling stubbornly to the fibers, and you spend hours teasing them out, transforming the chaotic mass into smooth, fluffy rolls ready for spinning. The task is monotonous, your hands moving mechanically, yet it requires focus. One missed burr can snag the spinning wheel later, wasting precious time. Spinning comes next, a task that demands both patience and dexterity. You stand at a spinning wheel, its wooden frame creaking softly as you feed the carded wool with one hand, while the other turns the wheel, coaxing a fine, even thread. The wheel hums, a low, soothing sound, but the work is grueling. Your shoulders stiffen and your eyes strain in the dim light, squinting to ensure the thread doesn't break or grow too thick. Hours pass, and the pile of wool seems barely diminished, yet your spindle grows heavy with thread, a small victory in a day filled with such small steps. If you're weaving linen, the process is even more arduous. Flax must be soaked in water until the fibers loosen, then beaten and combed, leaving your hands raw and your clothes damp with the faint, musty smell of river water. The thread, once spun, must be dyed, a process that transforms the cabin into a haze of steam and scent. You stir heavy pots over the fire, the heat making your brow prickle with sweat as you boil madder, root for a soft red or indigo for a deep, moody blue. Your hands, now stained with faint hues, move carefully to avoid splashing the precious dye, a luxury the colony can scarcely afford to waste. The air grows thick with the sharp herbal tang of the boiling mixture, and you wrap a cloth around your face to keep from coughing. Only then can you set up the loom, threading hundreds of warp strands through tiny heddles, a task that tests your dexterity and your patience. A single misstep, a tangled thread, a broken heddle can unravel hours of work, forcing you to start again, your frustration tempered only by the necessity of the task. This cycle carding, spinning, dyeing, weaving repeats endlessly, broken only by the seasons or the pressing needs of the household. You are not just a weaver, but a cook, stirring pots of bean pottage over the fire, a cleaner, sweeping the dirt floor with a worn broom, a mender, patching clothes that wear thin too quickly, and, if you have children, a caretaker, soothing their cries or teaching them to card wool at your side. The loom pauses when the fire needs tending, when a neighbor arrives to barter for a length of cloth, or when the cow, tethered outside, lows for milking. You trade your fabric for necessities: grain, salt, a new iron pot, or perhaps a few precious nails, but the exchange is rarely equal. The colony's economy is stretched thin, and your labor, though essential, is undervalued, a necessity taken for granted by those who wear the cloth you weave. The physical toll of this life is unrelenting, a slow erosion of your body. Your hands, rough and cracked, ache from gripping the shuttle and twisting the spindle. Your back protests the hours spent hunched over the loom, a dull pain that lingers even when you lie on your straw mattress at night. Your eyes grow weary from squinting at fine threads in the flickering candlelight, and the constant dampness of the cabinet's walls, never quite dry, seeps into your bones, leaving your joints stiff on cold mornings. The labor is not just physical, but mental, a test of endurance against the monotony. The same tasks, day after day, can dull the mind, yet you must remain vigilant, for a moment's inattention can ruin a week's work. Illness is a constant shadow, a threat that looms over every household. Fever, dysentery, or the dreaded smallpox can sweep through the village like a silent wind, leaving families shattered. Medical care is scarce. A traveling physician might pass through once a year, if you're lucky, and you rely on herbal remedies passed down from your mother. Willow bark for pain, chamomile for sleeplessness, or a poultice of yarrow for a cut that festers. You pray, too, in the Puritan way, with quiet, fervent words, hoping to ward off the unseen forces that claim so many. The memory of last winter's outbreak lingers, when the meeting house bell tolled too often, marking lives lost to the cold and the sickness. The community itself is both a lifeline and a burden. You live in a village of perhaps 100 souls, a cluster of cabins surrounded by fields and forest. Your neighbors are your survival. They share tools, help raise barns, and pray beside you in the meeting house, but they are also watchful. The Puritan Church demands your time and devotion, its influence woven into every aspect of life. Sundays are for sermons, long and somber, in a meeting house where the wooden pews are as unforgiving as the minister's gaze. You sit, hands folded, listening to warnings of sin and the need for diligence, the words blending into a familiar drone: to stray from this path, to miss a service, to speak out of turn invites suspicion. Whispers of witchcraft or heresy can ruin a family, and you feel the weight of conformity, a pressure to be pious, industrious, and uncomplaining, even when your body and spirit falter. Yet, there is a quiet pride in your work, a thread of meaning that runs through the hardship. The cloth you weave, sturdy woolen broadcloth for winter cloaks, fine linen for summer shirts, glows. Your family and your neighbors, it's a tangible thing, something you can touch and see, a small act of creation in a world that feels so precarious. You know the names of the sheep whose wool you spin, the fields where the flax was grown, the hands that helped shear or harvest. Your labor is part of the colony's survival, a thread in the fabric of this new world, a defiance against the wilderness that presses in from all sides. The wilderness itself is never far from your thoughts. Beyond the village, the forest looms, dark and vast, its shadows hiding both promise and peril. Rumors of native raids, tensions born of land disputes, circulate like a chill wind, though you've never seen an attack yourself. More immediate are the natural threats: a late frost that kills the corn, a wolf that stalks the livestock, or a storm that tears shingles from the roof. Last spring's flood turned the fields to mud, and the harvest was lean, forcing you to ration flour and barter more cloth than you could spare. You learned to live with uncertainty, to work through fear, to find solace in the rhythm of the loom. As night falls, you work by candlelight, the loom's clack blending with the chirp of crickets outside and the soft breathing of your family, already asleep on their pallets. The world beyond your cabin is vast and uncertain, a place of hardship and hope. But in this moment, there is only the loom, the thread, the rhythm. You are bound to this life, to its struggles and its small victories, and as you weave, you are part of something larger, something enduring, a community, a colony, a dream taking shape in the wilderness. Let us leave the weaver's cabin now, the clack of the loom fading into the night. Our journey through colonial America continues, and we turn next to a woman whose voice dared to challenge the rigid order of her world. Imagine a meeting house in Boston, filled with the murmurs of a restless crowd, as Anne Hutchinson steps forward to speak. As the clack of the weaver's loom fades into the quiet of a New England night, let us step away from the humble cabin and into the heart of Boston, to a meeting house in the year 1637. The air is thick with the scent of polished wood and the faint mustiness of woolen cloaks. Their whispers, hushed but urgent. Their whispers, hushed but urgent. Before them stands a woman, her posture steady, her voice clear, despite the weight of scrutiny upon her. This is Anne Hutchinson, a figure whose words would shake the foundations of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. Her story is one of courage, conviction, and consequence, a quiet rebellion that unfolded not on battlefields, but in parlors and courtrooms. Settle in now, and let us trace the path of her defiance, a journey through faith, dissent, and exile. Imagine yourself among the onlookers in that meeting house, the November chill seeping through the walls. The colony is young, barely a decade old, and its Puritan leaders are determined to forge a godly society, a city upon a hill where faith and order reign supreme. Every sermon, every law is crafted to ensure unity, and deviation is not merely frowned upon, it is dangerous. Into this tightly woven community comes Anne Hutchinson, a woman whose intellect and charisma would make her both admired and feared. Anne arrives in Boston in 1634, sailing from England with her husband William and their many children. She is in her early 40s, a skilled midwife with a sharp mind and a deep knowledge of Scripture. In England, she had been drawn to the teachings of John Cotton, a Puritan minister who emphasized the covenant of grace, the belief that salvation comes through divine mercy, not human works. This doctrine, subtle but radical, resonates with Anne, and when Cotton flees to New England to escape persecution, she and her family follow, seeking a place to practice their faith freely. The journey across the Atlantic is long, the ships hold damp and cramped, but Anne's resolve is unshaken. She steps onto Boston's shores with a sense of purpose, her heart set on building a new life. At first, Anne is welcomed. Her skills as a midwife make her indispensable in a colony where childbirth is frequent and perilous. Picture her in a neighbor's home, the room lit by a single candle, the air heavy with the scent of herbs and the soft moans of labor. She moves with quiet confidence, offering comfort and practical care. Her presence, a steady anchor in moments of uncertainty. Her reputation grows, and soon, women seek not only her medical expertise, but her spiritual guidance. Anne begins holding meetings in her home, gatherings where she discusses Cotton's sermons and shares her own interpretations of Scripture. These meetings, held in a parlor warmed by a crackling fire, draw dozens first women, then men, including merchants, farmers, and even some of the colony's leaders. Her voice, measured and articulate, carries a quiet power. She speaks of grace, of a direct connection to God that bypasses the rigid rituals of the Puritan Church. She questions the emphasis on works, the idea that good deeds and strict obedience are proof of salvation. To Anne, true faith is inward, a matter of the heart, not a checklist of behaviors. Her ideas are compelling, and her gatherings swell, the room filled with the rustle of skirts and the murmur of agreement. For many, her words offer relief from the constant fear of divine judgment, a fear that permeates the colony's sermons and laws. But Anne's teachings begin to unsettle the colony's leaders. The Puritan ministers, men like John Winthrop and Thomas Dudley, see her ideas as a threat to their authority. They preach a doctrine of discipline, where salvation is evidenced by adherence to church rules and moral conduct. Anne's emphasis on grace, they argue, undermines this order, suggesting that individuals can interpret God's will without the guidance of ordained ministers. Worse, she claims that many of the colony's preachers are not truly saved, a bold accusation that ripples through Boston like a stone dropped in still water. Whispers turn to accusations. Anne is a heretic, a troublemaker, a woman stepping beyond her place. By 1637, the colony is divided, a tension known as the antinomian controversy. The term antinomian, meaning against the law, is hurled at Anne and her followers, implying they reject moral order. Imagine the strain in the air as factions form. Some defend Anne, seeing her as a prophet of truth. Others condemn her, fearing her influence will fracture the fragile community. The leaders, determined to maintain control, decide she must be stopped. They summon her to a trial, not in a courtroom, but in the meeting house, where the weight of judgment is both spiritual and civic. Picture the scene. Anne stands before a panel of magistrates, her dark dress plain but neatly pressed, her expression calm despite the hostility around her. The meeting house is crowded, the pews creaking under the weight of onlookers. The ministers and governor question her relentlessly, their voices sharp with accusation. They ask about her meetings, her teachings, her claim that God speaks directly to her. Anne responds with scripture, quoting passages with a precision that frustrates her accusers. She is no meek defendant. She is learned, defiant, and unafraid to challenge the men who judge her. Yet, her composure cannot shield her from their verdict. The trial, more a formality than a fair hearing, ends with her conviction for heresy and sedition. The consequences are swift and severe. Anne is excommunicated from the church, her spiritual home torn away. She is banished from the colony, ordered to leave with her family in the spring of 1638. Imagine the weight of that moment as she steps out of the meeting house, the cold air biting her face, the murmurs of the crowd fading behind her. Banishment is no small punishment in a world where community is survival. Beyond Boston's borders lie wilderness, native tribes, and rival colonies, none guaranteed to offer refuge. Yet Anne does not falter. With her husband and children, she sets out for Rhode Island, a fledgling settlement founded by other dissenters. where religious freedom is a fragile promise. In Rhode Island, Anne continues her work, her spirit unbroken. She builds a new home, tends to her family, and remains a voice for those who seek a different path. But her story does not end in triumph. The wilderness is harsh, and tragedy follows. In 1643, after moving to the Dutch colony of New Netherland, Anne and most of her household face a devastating loss, their lives cut short in a conflict with native tribes. The details are uncertain, the event a shadow in the historical record, but it marks the end of her journey, a somber note in a life of bold conviction. Anne Hutchinson's defiance left a quiet but enduring mark. She challenged the rigid order of her time, giving voice to ideas that would echo in later struggles for freedom of thought. Her trial exposed the fragility of the Puritan experiment, a reminder that even in a new world, dissent could not be easily silenced. As we leave her story, imagine the meeting house now empty, the candles snuffed out, the echoes of her voice lingering in the stillness. Let us step away from the meeting house and turn our gaze to a mystery that has puzzled historians for centuries. Picture a lonely island off the coast of North Carolina, its shores battered by waves, where a colony vanished without a trace. The story of Roanoke awaits us, a tale woven with enigma and the whispers of the past. As the echoes of an Hutchinson's trial fade from the Boston meeting house, let us drift southward to a place where the past lies shrouded in enigma. Picture yourself standing on the shores of an island off the coast of what is now North Carolina in the late 16th century. The year is 1587, and the air is heavy with the salt of the sea and the scent of pine from the dense forests behind you. This is Roanoke, a fleeting outpost of English ambition, where a group of settlers carved out a fragile existence only to vanish without a trace. Their story, known as the Lost Colony, is one of the great mysteries of colonial America puzzle that has captivated scholars and dreamers for centuries. Settle in now, and let us wander through the clues, the whispers, and the silences left behind, as we explore what might have become of Roanoke's forgotten souls. Imagine the island as the settlers first saw it, a narrow strip of land, cradled between the Atlantic Ocean and the shallow waters of the Albemarle Sound. The beaches are fringed with sea oats, swaying in the breeze, and the forests hum with the chirp of cicadas and the rustle of deer moving through the underbrush. The native peoples, the Secotone and Croatoan, have lived here for generations, their villages marked by the smoke of cooking fires and the soft cadence of their languages. Into this world step the Englishmen, women, and children, numbering just over 100, led by John White, an artist and governor appointed by Sir Walter Raleigh. They are not the first to try settling here. Earlier attempts in the 1580s faltered amid hunger and conflict. But this group, arriving in the summer of 1587, is different. They are families, not just soldiers or adventurers, hoping to build a permanent home in a land they barely understand. Picture their arrival, the creak of the ship's timbers giving way to the crunch of boots on sandy soil. The settlers unload barrels of flour, tools, and muskets, their voices mingling with the cries of gulls overhead. Among them are women like Eleanor Dare, John White's daughter, who is pregnant, and men like Ananias Dare, her husband, a bricklayer tasked with building their new world. The colony is meant to be a beacon of English ambition, a foothold in the New World to rival Spanish colonies to the south. But the reality is far less grand. The soil is sandy, less fertile than hoped, and the summer heat is relentless, the air thick with mosquitoes that buzz around the settlers' faces as they work. The settlers set about building homes, simple wooden frames with thatched roofs, not unlike the cabins of later New England, but smaller, more makeshift. Imagine the sound of axes biting into cedar, the faint smell of sap mingling with the briny air. They plant crops, though the growing season is short, and they fish in the sound, their nets heavy with mullet and crab. Relations with the native peoples are fragile, strained by earlier English expeditions that left a legacy of mistrust. The Secotan, wary of these newcomers, keep their distance, though some, like the Croatoan on a nearby island, offer cautious trade corn for beads, fish for iron tools. The settlers rely on these exchanges, their own supplies dwindling faster than expected. John White, as governor, records the colony's early days with an artist's eye, sketching the landscape and the native villages in delicate watercolors. His drawings, later published in England, show Algonquian men fishing with spears, women tending crops, and palisaded villages alive with activity. These images are a window into a world the settlers hoped to join, but their survival hinges on resupply from England. The colony was meant to be a stepping stone to a larger settlement at Chesapeake Bay, but delays and navigational errors left them stranded at Roanoke. White, aware of the growing strain, sails back to England in late 1587 to plead for aid, leaving behind 115 settlers, including his daughter Eleanor and his newborn granddaughter, Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the New World. Picture White's departure, the ship's sails catching the wind as the settlers watch from the shore, their faces a mix of hope and unease. They do not know that England is on the brink of war with Spain, or that the Spanish Armada will delay White's return for 3 long years. By the time he sails back to Roanoke in 1590, the world he left has changed. Imagine his approach to the island, the ship rocking gently on the waves, the horizon revealing a coastline eerily quiet. As White steps ashore, he finds the settlement deserted. The houses are gone, dismantled or reclaimed by the forest. No bodies, no signs of struggle, only the remnants of a palisade and a single cryptic clue carved into a tree. The word Croatoan. The word stirs a flicker of hope. Croatoan is the name of a nearby island and its people, allies who had shown kindness to the settlers. White believes the colonists may have relocated there, perhaps seeking refuge or better resources, but storms and dwindling supplies force his ship to abandon the search, and he never sees Roanoke again. The fate of the lost colony becomes a question mark in history, a story that grows into legend as centuries pass. Let us pause to consider the clues left behind, like footprints in the sand. The carving of Croatoan suggests intent, a message left for White, not a cry of distress. There is no cross, a prearranged signal for danger, which White had instructed the settlers to use. This absence implies the colonists left deliberately, perhaps in an orderly move. But where did they go, and why? Historians and archaeologists have sifted through the possibilities, their findings as delicate as the artifacts they unearth. Imagine the work of modern archaeologists, their trowels scraping through layers of sandy soil on Roanoke and nearby islands, at a site called Hatteras, once home to the Croatoan people. They've found tantalizing hints, fragments of English pottery, a gunflint, a copper ring objects that might have belonged to the settlers or been traded with them. These artifacts, small and weathered, suggest contact between the English and the Croatoan, perhaps even integration. Could the settlers have joined the native community, adopting their ways to survive? The Croatoan lived by fishing, hunting, and cultivating maize. their longhouses warmed by communal fires. For the English, blending into this world would have meant learning new skills, new languages, and new rhythms of life, a slow, deliberate adaptation under the weight of necessity. Another theory points northward to the Chesapeake Bay, the colony's original destination. Archaeological digs at a site called Site X, near the Chowan River, have uncovered English-style ceramics and tools mixed with native artifacts, dated to the late 1580s. Perhaps some settlers trekked overland, seeking the fertile lands White had promised. The journey would have been arduous through swamps and forests, their supplies dwindling, their hope tested by every step. If they reached their destination, they left no clear record, their story swallowed by the vastness of the land. There are darker possibilities, though we tread lightly here. The settlers may have faced hardship, hunger, disease, or tensions with native groups. The region was not at peace. Rivalries among tribes and the legacy of earlier English aggression could have sparked conflict. If the settlers met such a fate, it was likely swift, their lives fading into the forest's embrace, leaving no trace for White to find. Yet, the lack of evidence, no signs of destructions, suggests this was not a sudden end, but a gradual dispersal, a fading rather than a fall. The native peoples themselves hold another piece of the puzzle. In the 18th century, travelers among the Lumbye tribe, descendants of the region's Algonquian peoples, noted stories of ancestors with European features, gray eyes, light-haired traditions of reading or writing. These oral histories, passed down through generations, hint at a blending of cultures, a possibility that the settlers were absorbed into native communities, their English ways softening over time, like stones smoothed by a river. As we wander through these theories, imagine the island of Roanoke today, its shores quiet but for the lapping waves. Archaeologists continue their work, sifting through soil and history, but the full truth remains elusive, like a shadow moving just beyond the firelight. The lost colony is a reminder of how fragile beginnings can be, how quickly a dream can dissolve into the unknown. The settlers, whether they found refuge, forged new lives, or simply faded, were part of a larger story, the halting, uncertain steps of a nation yet to be. Let us leave Roanoke's shores now, the mystery lingering like mist over the water. Our journey through colonial America continues, and we turn next to a world far removed from the weaver's cabin or the lost outpost. Picture a grand mansion in Virginia, its halls aglow with candlelight, where a governor's life unfolds in stark contrast to the struggles we've seen. As the mystery of Roanoke's lost settlers fades into the misty shores of the past, let us step away from the wild edges of the New World and into a world of candlelight and polished oak. Picture yourself in Virginia in the early 18th century, standing within the walls of a governor's mansion in Williamsburg, the colony's bustling capital. The air is warm with the scent of beeswax candles and the faint sweetness of Madeira wine, a far cry from the smoky, earthy cabins of ordinary settlers. Here, the life of a colonial governor unfolds a life of privilege, power, and quiet burdens. Unlike the weaver, whose days were bound to the relentless clack of the loom, the governor inhabits a world of diplomacy and decorum, yet one no less demanding in its own way. Settle in now, and let us wander through the halls of this grand residence, where every gesture carries weight, and every moment is shaped by the delicate balance of authority. Imagine the mansion itself, a two-story brick edifice, its symmetry a testament to English ideals of order and refinement. The facade glows softly in the evening light, its tall windows framed by crisp white shutters. Inside, the entrance hall is wide and airy, its floorboards polished to a sheen that reflects the flicker of chandeliers overhead. The walls are adorned with portraits of stern-faced ancestors or distant monarchs, their eyes seeming to follow you as you move. The air carries the faint scent of lavender from sachets tucked into corners, mingling with the rich aroma of furniture wax and the occasional whiff of tobacco smoke drifting from a nearby parlor. This is a place designed to impress, a stage for the governor to perform his role as the king's representative in a land far from London. You are not the governor himself, but let us imagine you as a guest, invited to observe his world. The governor, perhaps, a figure like Alexander Spotswood, who served Virginia in the 1710s, a man of education and ambition, appointed by the crown or a proprietary lord. His day begins not with the dawn's labor, but with the soft knock of a servant, a young man in a neatly pressed livery, who brings a tray of tea and bread. The governor rises from a four-poster bed, its canopy draped with damask, and dresses in fine woolen breeches, a silk waistcoat, and a coat embroidered with silver thread. His wig, powdered and carefully arranged, is a symbol of his status, though it itches faintly in the humid Virginia air. Breakfast is served in a dining room lined with mahogany panels, the table set with silver cutlery and porcelain imported from England. He sips tea from a delicate cup, the flavor bright with a hint of bergamot, while reviewing letters from London or reports from the colony's frontiers. But this elegance comes with a purpose. The governor's role is to maintain order, foster prosperity, and uphold the crown's interests in a colony that is both vital and volatile. His mornings are spent in a private study, its shelves lined with leather-bound volumes of law and philosophy. The room smells of ink and parchment, and the scratch of a quill fills the silence as he drafts proclamations or responds to complaints from planters and merchants. Imagine the weight of his decisions: a dispute over land grants in the Shenandoah Valley, a plea for militia to guard against native raids, or a delicate negotiation with the House of Burgesses, the colony's elected assembly, which guards its privileges jealously. Every choice risks alienating someone: local elites, distant royals, or the native tribes whose alliances are fragile but essential. Midday brings visitors, and the mansion becomes a hub of activity. Picture the clatter of carriage wheels on the cobblestone drive as a wealthy planter arrives, his hat adorned with a single ostrich feather. The governor greets him in the parlor, a room warmed by a marble fireplace and furnished with brocade chairs. Servants enslaved men and women, their presence a silent cornerstone of the household, move quietly, offering trays of biscuits and wine. The conversation is polite but pointed, touching on tobacco prices, trade regulations, or the need for new roads. The governor listens, his smile practiced, but his mind is always calculating. A misstep could weaken his authority or spark resentment among the colony's powerful families, whose wealth in land and labor far exceeds his own. Dinner is the day's centerpiece, a ritual of display that reinforces the governor's status. Imagine the dining room aglow with dozens of candles, their light dancing on silver candelabras and crystal glassware. The table groans under the weight of dishes: roasted venison, oysters from the Chesapeake, and puddings sweetened with molasses. The air is rich with the savory aroma of herbs and the faint tang of cider. Guests, merchants, clergy, or visiting officials wear their finest, their laughter mingling with the clink of forks. The governor presides, his conversation erudite, touching on London politics or the latest scientific tracts. Yet, even here, he is performing, careful to flatter without seeming obsequious, to command without seeming tyrannical. His wife, if present, plays her own role, her silk gown rustling, as she directs the servants with a subtle nod, ensuring the evening flows smoothly. But beneath the polish lies a constant tension. The governor's power is not absolute. He answers to the crown, whose directives arrive months late, often out of touch with the colony's realities. He must navigate the ambitions of the burgesses, who see themselves as Virginia's true stewards, and he must contend with the land itself, swamps breeding fever, its frontiers vulnerable to unrest. Imagine the quiet moments, late at night, when the mansion is still, and the governor sits alone in his study, the fire reduced to embers. He reads a letter, warning of French encroachments, or a report of a failed harvest, and the weight of his role settles like a cloak. A wrong decision could cost lives, destabilize the colony, or end his career. Even in this grand house, security is an illusion, and the specter of failure is never far. The mansion's opulence, too, comes at a cost. The servants who polish the silver, tend the gardens, and cook the feasts are often enslaved, their labor the unseen foundation of this grandeur. The governor, like most elites, depends on their work, yet their presence is a reminder of the colony's moral complexities, a tension he may acknowledge only in fleeting moments of reflection. The house itself requires constant upkeep, repairs to the roof, fresh paint for the shutters, new glass for windows cracked by storms. The expense is staggering, and the governor's salary, often delayed by bureaucratic tangles, rarely covers it. He may borrow from planters or dip into his own fortune, a gamble that ties him ever closer to the colony's elite. Evenings often end with a ball or a musical performance, the mansion's ballroom filled with the strains of a violin and the soft shuffle of dancing feet. The room is warm, the air scented with rosewater and the faint musk of powdered wigs. The governor moves among his guests, his smile unwavering, but his mind is already on tomorrow's challenges. As the night winds down, the candles burn low, and the guests depart in their carriages. The mansion grows quiet, save for the creak of floorboards and the distant bark of a dog. The governor retires to his chamber, the weight of his duties lingering like the echo of the music. This life, so different from the weaver's, is one of privilege but not ease. The governor's world is one of appearances, where every word and gesture is a thread in a delicate tapestry of power. Yet, like the weaver, he is bound to his role, his days shaped by the needs of a colony that is both his charge and his burden. Let us leave the governor's mansion now, its candlelight dimming into the night. Our journey through colonial America continues, and we turn next to a quieter innovation, one that shaped the words and ideas of this young world. Picture a small shop in Philadelphia, the air sharp with the smell of ink, where a printing press hums with purpose. As the candlelight of the governor's mansion fades into the Virginia night, let us step into a quieter corner of colonial America, where a different kind of labor shapes the pulse of the colonies. Picture yourself in a narrow shop in Philadelphia, sometime in the early 18th century. The air is sharp with the scent of fresh ink and the woody tang of paper, and a gentle creak fills the room as a wooden press moves in a deliberate rhythm. This is the world of the colonial printing press, a machine that brought words to life and ideas to the far reaches of a new world. Unlike the weaver's loom or the governor's grand hall, the printing press worked in the shadows, its influence unfolding slowly, like ink drying on a page. Settle in now, and let us explore this unassuming invention, a quiet revolution that wove the colonies together with threads of thought and knowledge. Imagine the shop itself, a small, cluttered space tucked between a tavern and a cobbler's workshop. The walls are lined with shelves, heavy with reams of paper and rows of metal type, each tiny letter gleaming faintly in the light of a single lantern. The floor is worn, stained with ink spills, and littered with scraps of misprinted sheets. At the center stands the printing press, a sturdy wooden frame with a large screw and a flat platen, its surface polished by years of use. The air carries the faint mustiness of damp paper and the acrid bite of ink, a mixture of linseed oil and lampblack that clings to everything it touches. Outside, the street hums with the clop of hooves and the chatter of passersby, but inside, the shop is a world of focus, where every motion serves the creation of a single page. You are not the printer, but let us imagine you as an observer, watching the work unfold. The printer, perhaps a figure like Benjamin Franklin, who began as an apprentice in Boston before establishing his own press in Philadelphia, is a man of precision and patience. His hands, stained black at the fingertips, move with practiced ease as he sets type, selecting each letter from a wooden case and arranging it in a composing stick. The process is slow, almost meditative, the faint clink of metal type blending with the rustle of paper. Each line must be perfect, every letter aligned, for a single error can ruin a page. The printer's apron is smudged with ink, and his brow furrows as he checks his work by candlelight, the glow casting long shadows across the room. The printing press itself is a marvel of simplicity, a machine that had already transformed Europe before crossing the Atlantic. The first press arrived in the colonies in 1638, brought to Cambridge, Massachusetts, by a Puritan minister named Stephen Day. Picture that early press, smaller than its modern counterparts, set up in a cramped room near Harvard College. Its purpose was to print religious text psalters, catechisms, and sermons to guide the godly mission of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. The first book it produced in 1640 was the Bay Psalm Book, a collection of psalms translated into English verse, its pages bound in simple leather and distributed to meeting houses across the colony. The book's words, sung in the droning cadence of Puritan worship, became a thread in the fabric of colonial life, a shared voice for a scattered people. But the press was more than a tool for piety. As the colonies grew, so did the ambitions of their printers. By the early 1700s, presses operated in Boston, Philadelphia, and New York, producing not just religious works but almanacs, broadsides, and newspapers. Imagine the printer's shop now, in the 1720s, as it churns out a broadside, a single sheet of paper printed with news, proclamations, or ballads. The paper, often imported from England or made locally from rags, is coarse, its edges uneven, but to the colonists, it is a treasure. A broadside might announce a new law, report a ship's arrival, or share a poem lamenting a recent storm. It is pinned to tavern walls or passed hand to hand, its words read aloud to those who cannot decipher the cramped black letter type. The almanac, another staple of the colonial press, is perhaps the printer's greatest triumph. Picture a small, stitched booklet, its pages filled with calendars, weather predictions, and snippets of advice. Benjamin Franklin's Poor Richard's Almanac, first published in 1732, is the most famous. Its proverbs, like early to bed, early to rise, makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise, becoming part of the colonial lexicon. The almanac is a companion to farmers and merchants alike, tucked into pockets or placed on bedside tables. Its predictions tides, planting seasons, eclipses are a blend of science and folklore, and its humor offers a moment of levity in lives defined by labor. As you imagine flipping through its pages, the faint smell of ink rises, and the paper crinkles softly under your fingers, a reminder of the printer's craft. The work of printing, though, is not without its challenges. Setting type is painstaking, and inking the press requires a delicate touch. The printer spreads ink onto the type with leather balls stuffed with wool, the motion steady to avoid smudging. The paper is laid carefully, and the press's screw is turned, pressing the page with a satisfying thud. Each sheet is hung to dry, the shop filled with rows of pages swaying like laundry in the breeze. A single edition might take days to produce, and mistakes are costly. Paper is scarce, and ink is expensive. The printer must also navigate the colony's politics. In a world where words carry power, a misjudged pamphlet could offend a governor or a minister, inviting censorship or worse. Yet the press persists, its output a quiet defiance of distance and isolation. The printing press binds the colonies in ways the weaver's cloth or the governor's decrees cannot. A newspaper, like the Boston Newsletter of 1704, carries word of events from London to Virginia, knitting disparate settlements into a shared conversation. A printed sermon reaches beyond the meeting house, its message echoing in distant villages. Even the humblest broadside, nailed to a market cross, sparks debate among those who gather to read it. The press gives voice to the colony's aspirations and anxieties, from calls for trade to warnings of war. It is a tool of connection, its pages carrying ideas across oceans and forests, planting seeds that will grow in later generations. Yet, for all its influence, the printer's work is humble. Much like the weaver's, the shop is not a place of grandeur, but of labor, its floor dusty, its air heavy with the scent of effort. The printer, often a solitary figure, works late into the night. The lantern's glow, his only companion. His hands, like the weaver's, bear the marks of his trade instained calloused, a testament to the slow, deliberate creation of something lasting. In this small space, words take shape, and the colonies begin to imagine themselves as something more than scattered outposts. Let us leave the print shop now, the scent of ink lingering as the press falls silent. Our journey through colonial America continues, and we turn next to a place where the past has been unearthed, revealing the struggles of an earlier time. Picture a muddy field in Virginia, where archaeologists sift through the soil, uncovering the story of Jamestown. As the ink dries in the Philadelphia print shop and the hum of the press fades into silence, let us journey southward to a place where the past lies buried beneath the soil. Picture yourself standing on the banks of the James River in Virginia, in the present day, where the air carries the faint temps of brackish water and the distant call of a heron. This is Jamestown, the first permanent English settlement in America, founded in 1607. For centuries, its story was told through faded records and half-remembered legends, its physical traces thought lost to time and tide. But in recent decades, archaeologists have peeled back the earth, revealing the fragile remnants of a settlement that shaped the New World. Settle in now, and let us wander through the rediscovery of Jamestown, a quiet unearthing of lives marked on endurance, hardship, and endurance. Imagine the sight as it appears today, a low, marshy island fringed with reeds and cypress trees. The river flows steadily, its surface glinting in the sunlight, while the ground beneath your feet is soft, layered with centuries of silt and secrets. In the 19th century, historians believed Jamestown's original fort had been claimed by the river's relentless current, its timbers washed away. The site was a quiet field, visited only by curious travelers or local farmers, its significance marked by little more than a crumbling church tower from the 17th century. But in 1994, a team of archaeologists, led by William Kelso, began to dig, driven by a hunch that the fort might still lie hidden. Their work, meticulous and patient, would rewrite the story of America's beginnings. Picture the archaeologists at work, their trowels scraping gently through layers of clay and ash. The air is warm, heavy with the scent of damp earth and the faint sweetness of decaying leaves. Each scoop of soil is sifted carefully, revealing fragments of the past, a shard of pottery, a rusted nail, a bead of colored glass. The first breakthrough comes with the discovery of a palisade line of post holes marking the edge of a triangular fort. The wood is long gone, rotted away, but the stains in the soil tell a story of logs driven deep into the ground, a barrier built by men desperate to protect their fragile outpost. As the team digs, the fort takes shape. 3 walls, a corner bulwark, a well, and the faint outlines of buildings where 104 men and boys lived, worked, and struggled to survive. Let us step back to 1607, when Jamestown was new. Imagine the settlers' arrival, their ship, the Susan Constant, anchored in the muddy river. The men, gentlemen, laborers, and soldiers sent by the Virginia Company step ashore, their boots sinking into the marshy ground. The air is thick with the buzz of insects and the sharp scent of salt water. They choose this spot for its defensibility, surrounded by water on 3 sides. But it is a poor choice for living. The soil is sandy, unfit for crops, and the water brackish, breeding sickness. The native Powhatan people, led by Chief Wahun Sanako, watch from a distance, their villages thriving in the forests beyond. The English build their fort, its walls of sharpened logs, a symbol of both hope and fear, and set about planting corn and searching for gold, their dreams of wealth clashing with the land's harsh realities. The archaeologists' findings bring these early years into focus. Picture the artifacts emerging from the soil. A clay pipe, its stem broken, but still bearing the faint scent of tobacco. A pewter spoon, bent from use. A musket ball, its surface pitted with age. These objects, small and ordinary, are the remnants of daily life, each one a thread in the tapestry of Jamestown's story. The well, dug within the fort's walls, yields a treasure trove, shoes, tools, and even the bones of a dog, preserved in the muddy depths. The well was a lifeline, its water a necessity, in a place where the river was often poison, but it also became a repository for the colony's refuse, a time capsule of their struggles. The digs reveal the settlers' hardships with quiet clarity. Imagine the soil yielding signs of hunger, animal bones, gnawed to the marrow, and oyster shells, evidence of desperate scavenging. The winter of 1609 to 1610, known as the Starving Time, left a mark on the archaeological record. The settlers, trapped within the fort, faced a brutal season when supplies ran out and disease and cold took their toll. The artifacts tell of survival pushed to its limits. A horse's skull, butchered for meat. A fragment of a human bone, bearing faint marks that suggest a moment of unthinkable desperation. We tread lightly here, noting only that life, for some, slipped away in the shadow of want, their stories absorbed into the earth. The archaeologists handle these finds with care, their work a quiet act of remembrance, piecing together a past that speaks of resilience as much as suffering. The rediscovery also illuminates the colony's interactions with the Powhatan. Picture the trade goods unearthed: blue glass beads, copper scraps, and iron tools, items the English offered in exchange for corn and furs. These objects, found both in the fort and in nearby native sites, speak of a complex relationship, moments of cooperation strained by mistrust and occasional conflict. A Powhatan arrowhead, lodged in the fort's palisade, hints at tensions that flared into skirmishes, though the settlers' greater threat was often their own missteps, poor planning, disease, and the land's unforgiving nature. The archaeological work extends beyond the fort to the town that grew around it. Imagine the outlines of a church, its foundations marked by brick and stone, where settlers gathered for prayer, their voices rising in the still air. A governor's house, larger than the weaver's cabin, emerges from the soil, its hearth filled with ash from long-ago fires. The most poignant finds are the graves, dozens of them, dug within and around the fort. The skeletons, carefully excavated, tell stories of youth and strugglemen in their 20s, their bones marked by the wear of labor or the ravages of illness. One grave, dubbed Junior 102C, holds a young man buried with a captain's staff, his identity a mystery but his status clear. These burials, laid out with care, speak of a community that, even in its darkest moments, sought to honor its own. The rediscovery of Jamestown is ongoing, each season bringing new insights. Picture the archaeologists now, their tents pitched beside the river, their hands sifting through the past. A recent Finda silver ring, inscribed with a faint design, sparks questions. Was it a settler's keepsake, a trade good, or a token from England? The soil holds no answers, only fragments, and the mystery of Jamestown endures, much like Roanoke's. Yet, these fragments are enough to rebuild the story, to give voice to those who toiled and hoped in a world so different from our own. Jamestown's rediscovery reminds us of the fragility of beginnings, of lives shaped by ambition and tempered by adversity. The fort, once lost to time, now stands again in replica, its walls a quiet monument to those who came before. As we leave this place, the river continues its steady flow, carrying the echoes of their story into the present. Let us leave the muddy fields of Jamestown now, the archaeologists' trowels resting for the night. Our journey through colonial America continues, and we turn next to a different facet of this world, one bound by labor and obligation. Picture a tobacco field in Virginia, where the lives of indentured servants unfold under the weight of a relentless sun. As the archaeologists' trowels rest beside the James River and the echoes of Jamestown's past settle into silence, let us turn our gaze to the sprawling fields of Virginia, where a different kind of labor shaped the colonies. Picture yourself in the year 1670, standing at the edge of a tobacco plantation, the air heavy with the sweet, earthy scent of curing leaves and the faint buzz of insects in the late summer heat. Here, under a relentless sun, indentured servants work the land, their lives bound by contracts that promise freedom but demand years of grueling effort. Far from the polished halls of the governor's mansion, these men and women represent the backbone of the colonial economy, their stories woven into the fabric of a new world. Settle in now, and let us wander through their days, a quiet exploration of labor, hope, and the weight of obligation. Imagine yourself not as a servant, but as an observer, watching the rhythm of their lives unfold. The plantation stretches across acres of cleared land, its fields green with rows of tobacco plants, their broad leaves swaying gently in the breeze. The soil, red and clay-heavy, clings to boots and hands, a constant reminder of the land's demands. The servants' quarters are simpler cluster of wooden cabins, their roofs thatched with straw, their interiors sparse and smoky from small hearths. The air inside carries the faint mustiness of damp wood and the lingering aroma of boiled cornmeal, the staple of their diet. These cabins, cramped and drafty, offer little comfort, a stark contrast to the governor's mansion with its silver candelabras and silk drapes. You focus on one servant, a young man in his early 20s, perhaps named Thomas, who arrived from England 3 years ago. His story is typical of many. Born to a struggling family in London, he signed an indentura contract, trading for 2 7 years of labor for passage to the New World and the promise of land or wages at the end. The document, inked on coarse paper, was his ticket out of poverty, a gamble on a future he could scarcely imagine. Picture him now, his linen shirt stained with sweat and dirt, his hands rough from wielding a hoe. His face, weathered beyond his years, carries the faint hope of freedom, though the weight of his term presses heavily. The day begins at dawn, the sky still pale as Thomas rises from a straw pallet, the floor cold beneath his bare feet. Breakfast is hasty, a bowl of cornmeal porridge, perhaps mixed with a scrap of bacon if the master is generous. There is no time to linger. The overseer, a stern man with a ledger and a whip, calls the servants to the fields. The work is relentless, a cycle of planting, weeding, and harvesting that follows the tobacco's growth. Imagine Thomas bending low, his back aching as he digs furrows in the stubborn soil, the sun warming his neck until it burns. The plants require constant care, removing worms, pruning leaves, staking stems against the windand. Each task is a test of endurance, the air thick with the sticky, resinous scent of tobacco. The labor is not just physical, but monotonous, the hours blurring into a rhythm of hoe and sweat. The fields hum with the soft chatter of other servants, men and women, English, Irish, and occasionally African, their accents mingling in a quiet chorus. Some sing to pass the time, their voices low and mournful, carrying tunes from distant homes. But conversation is cautious. The overseer's gaze is sharp, and idleness invites rebuke. Thomas works alongside a woman named Mary, her hands deft as she ties leaves into bundles, her own indenture a mirror of his. They share a nod, a small gesture of camaraderie, but their focus remains on the task. For the master's profit hand, their survival depends on the harvest. Life as an indentured servant is precarious, shaped by the land and the master's will. The plantation's owner, a planter whose wealth rivals the governor's, lives in a brick manor a mile away, its windows glowing with candlelight at dusk. He provides the servants food and shelter, but these are meager, moldy grains, thin blankets, and cabins that leak in the rain. Illness is a constant threat. The swamps breed fevers, and dysentery claims lives with quiet swiftness. Imagine Thomas tending to a feverish friend, offering water from a chipped cup, his own fear tempered by the need to keep working. Medical care is rare, limited to herbal remedies, or the occasional visit from a healer, and many do not survive their term, their dreams of freedom buried in unmarked graves. The servant's world is governed by the indenture's terms, a legal chain that binds them to obedience. Disobedience, running away, refusing work brings punishment, though we speak softly of such things. A servant might face extra years added to their contract, or a public reprimand, their spirit worn down by the system's weight. Yet resistance takes quieter forms, a slowed pace in the fields, a whispered complaint, or a stolen moment of rest beneath an oak tree. Its shade a fleeting refuge, Thomas clings to the hope of his contract's end, dreaming of a small plot of land where he might grow his own crops, free from the overseer's shadow. The social fabric of the plantation is complex, a microcosm of the colony's diversity. Indentured servants make up a third of Virginia's workforce in this era, their labor fueling the tobacco trade that fills the governor's coffers and the merchant's ships. They work alongside enslaved Africans, whose numbers are growing, their bondage permanent where the servant's is temporary. The two groups share the fields, their lives intertwined, though the law draws a sharp line between them. Thomas might trade stories with an African man named Kofi, learning a few words of his language, but their futures diverge, freedom for one, if he survives, and none for the other. This tension, unspoken but palpable, shapes the plantation's rhythm, a reminder of the colony's uneasy foundations. Despite the hardship, there are moments of humanity. Picture a rare evening when the work ends early and the servants gather by a fire outside their cabins. The air is cool, scented with wood smoke and the faint sweetness of molasses from a shared jug. Someone strums a makeshift lute, its strings twanging softly, while others share tales of their old lives, London's crowded streets, Ireland's green hills. Mary, the woman from the fields, tells of her hope to marry once her term ends, her voice soft but steady. These moments, fleeting and fragile, are a thread of resilience, a refusal to let the labor erase their dreams. The indentured servant's role, though grueling, is vital to the colony's growth. Their sweat turns Virginia's soil into wealth, their labor building the infrastructure of a new society. Some, like Thomas, will survive their terms, claiming land or wages to start anew, though many find the promised acres poor or already claimed by elites. Others will falter, their lives slipping into the margins of history. Yet their work lays the groundwork for the world of the weaver, the printer, and the governor, a foundation built on toil and tempered by hope. Let us leave the tobacco fields now, the servants' voices fading into the twilight. As the tobacco fields of Virginia fade into the twilight, the servants' weary voices softening into silence, let us turn to a quieter corner of colonial life, one that speaks through the printed word. Picture yourself in a modest New England home, sometime in the 1730s, seated by a crackling hearth. The air carries the faint scent of wood smoke and the subtle Thames of tallow from a single candle, its light flickering across a small, well-worn booklet in your hands. This is an almanac, a humble companion to farmers, merchants, and weavers alike, its pages filled with calendars, proverbs, and snippets of wisdom that shaped the rhythm of colonial days. Among these, Benjamin Franklin's Poor Richard's Almanac stands out, its wit and practicality, a beacon in a world of labor and uncertainty. Settle in now, and let us leaf through its pages, a soothing exploration of the ideas and stories that bound the colonies together. Imagine the almanac itself, a slim volume no larger than your hand, its paper coarse and slightly yellowed, its cover stitched with rough thread. The print is cramped, the black ink smudged in places, but the words are clear. inviting you to linger. The Almanac is more than a book. It is a guide, a friend, a voice that speaks to the daily concerns of a colonial household. Its pages list the phases of the moon, the tides of the harbor, the best days for planting or shearing sheep. But it is the proverbs, poems, and asides penned by Franklin under the pseudonym Richard Saunders that give it life, their humor and insight a gentle spark in the dim light of a winter evening. Picture yourself opening the almanac, the paper crinkling softly as you turn to the calendar for March 1733. The days are marked with symbols for the weather sun, clouds, a tiny crescent moon, and, alongside them, a proverb: early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. The words, simple yet memorable, are the kind that stick in the mind, repeated by farmers as they trudge to their fields, or by weavers as they sit at their looms. Franklin, a printer by trade, knew his audience ordinary folk, like the indentured servants or the weaver from our earlier tales, whose lives were shaped by toil and the hope of better days. His almanac, first published in 1732, became a bestseller, selling thousands of copies each year, its pages tucked into pockets or placed on bedside tables from Massachusetts to Carolina. The almanac's wisdom is practical, rooted in the rhythms of a world where survival depended on foresight. Imagine reading an entry advising plow deep while sluggards sleep, and you shall have corn to sell and to keep. The words are a nudge, a reminder to the farmer to prepare his fields. But they carry a deeper truth about diligence, a value prized in a colony where idleness could mean hunger. Another proverb, a penny saved is a penny earned, speaks to the merchant or the housewife, urging thrift in a land where coin was scarce and trade often meant barter. These sayings, delivered with a wry smile, are like seeds planted in the reader's mind, their simplicity masking a quiet call to resilience. But the almanac is not all stern advice. Franklin's humor weaves through its pages, a gentle thread that lightens the weight of colonial life. Picture a short tale, tucked between the tide tables, about a farmer who boasts of his wealth only to lose it to a storm. With the moral, he that lies down with dogs shall rise up with fleas. The story, told in a few lines, draws a soft chuckle, its lesson about humility wrapped in a playful image. Or consider an aside like fish and visitors smell in 3 days, a quip that resonates with anyone who has hosted a guest in a cramped cabin, the air growing stale with too many bodies. These moments of wit are Franklin's gift, a way to connect with readers across the colonies, from the governor's mansion to the servants' quarters. The almanac also serves as a window into the broader culture of the time. Imagine flipping to a page listing remarkable days, noting the king's birthday or the anniversary of a colonial charter. These entries tie the reader to a larger world, reminding them of their place in the British Empire, even as they toil in distant fields. Other pages offer recipes, how to pickle cucumbers, or brew spruce beer, or remedies, like a tea of sassafras for fever, blending folklore with the practical knowledge of a people learning to live in a new land. The almanac's voice is conversational, as if Richard Saunders himself were sitting by your hearth, sharing stories over a mug of cider, the room warmed by the fire's glow. Let us pause to consider the almanac's creation, a process tied to the printing press we visited earlier. Picture Franklin in his Philadelphia shop, the air sharp with the smell of ink and the clatter of type. He writes late into the night, his quill scratching across paper, crafting proverbs that draw from Old English sayings, classical texts, and his own keen observations. The almanac's predictions, weather, eclipses, planting seasons are calculated with care, using astronomical tables and a touch of guesswork, for science in the colonies is still a fledgling art. Once written, the text is set by hand, each letter placed in a composing stick, the pages printed one at a time, the presses thud a steady heartbeat. The finished almanacs, bound and stacked, are carried by peddlers to villages and ports, their words spreading like ripples across the colonies. The almanac's influence is quiet but profound. It is a shared text, read aloud in taverns or passed between neighbors, its proverbs becoming part of the colonial vernacular. For the weaver, it offers a moment of distraction, a proverb to ponder as the loom clacks on. For the indentured servant, it is a reminder of the virtues diligence, thrift that might lead to freedom. Even the governor, in his grand mansion, might glance at its pages, smiling at a clever turn of phrase. The almanac bridges the divides of class and place, its words a common thread in a fragmented world. It plants ideas, two ideas of self-reliance, of community that will take root in later years as the colonies begin to imagine a future apart from the crown. Yet, the almanac is also a product of its time, reflecting the struggles we've seen. Its advice assumes a world of scarcity, where a failed crop or a harsh winter could tip a family into ruin. Its humor, though light, often nods to the hardships of colonial life, debt, illness, the unpredictability of the land. Franklin himself, though a man of wit, knew these realities. His almanac was written for people like the servants and weavers, whose lives were a constant negotiation with adversity. The book's optimism, its belief in hard work and cleverness, is a quiet defiance, a way to find meaning in a world that offered little mercy. As you imagine, closing the almanac, its pages worn from use, the candle burns low, casting long shadows across the room. The words linger, their simplicity a comfort, their wisdom a guide. The almanac, like the lives it touched, is a testament to the power of small things, small words, small moments that shape a larger story. Let us set the almanac aside now, its pages resting by the hearth. Our journey through colonial America continues, and we turn next to the bustling world of trade, where ships and merchants wove the colonies into a global web. Picture a wharf in Boston, the air sharp with salt and tar, where barrels of rum await their journey across the sea. As the Hopewell's sails vanish into the horizon, and the bustle of the Boston wharf fades into the sea's gentle hum, let us turn our steps inland to a quiet village green in Massachusetts, sometime in the late 17th century. The air is crisp with the scent of freshly cut timber and the faint sweetness of grass, warmed by the morning sun. Here, in the heart of a small Puritan community, men and women gather to raise a meeting house, a simple, sturdy building that will serve as both church and town hall, the cornerstone of their shared life. Unlike the merchant's world of trade or the printer's inky shop, this is a place of collective effort where the colony's faith and unity take physical form. Settle in now and let us wander through the construction of this meeting house, a soothing exploration of labor, craft, and the quiet pride of building something meant to endure. Picture the village, a cluster of wooden cabins encircling a grassy common, its edges marked by a low stone wall. The year is 1685, and the community, perhaps 100 souls, has outgrown its first meeting house, a cramped structure now sagging under the weight of winter snows. The decision to build anew is made in a town meeting, the air thick with the murmur of voices and the faint scent of woolen cloaks. The meeting house is more than a building. It is the heart of the Puritan world, where sermons are preached, laws debated, and community forged. Its construction is a shared duty, a labor that binds the weaver, the servant, and even the distant governor to a common purpose. Imagine the site chosen for the new meeting house, a gentle rise overlooking the village green. The ground is cleared, the grass pulled away to reveal dark, loamy soil. The work begins with the felling of trees, a task that echoes through the nearby forest. Picture the men wielding axes, their blades biting into oak and pine, the air filled with the sharp scent of sap and the rhythmic thud of steel. The trees, tall and straight, are chosen for their strength, their trunks dragged to the site by teams of oxen, their hooves sinking into the soft earth. The scene is alive with activity, yet there is a calm order to it, a shared understanding that this work is sacred, a testament to the community's faith. The design of the meeting house is simple, in keeping with Puritan ideals of modesty. It is a rectangular structure, perhaps 40 feet by 30, with a steeply pitched roof to shed snow and a small bell tower to call the faithful. There are no ornate carvings, no stained glass such. Flourishes are deemed vain, but the building's clean lines and sturdy frame speak of a quiet dignity. The master carpenter, a man named John, perhaps, with weathered hands and a keen eye, oversees the work. He is not an architect in the modern sense, but a craftsman trained through years of apprenticing, his knowledge passed down like the proverbs in an almanac. He marks the timbers with chalk, his measurements precise, ensuring each joint will hold against the New England winters. Picture the raising of the frame, a communal event that draws the entire village. The timbers, hewn into beams and posts, are laid out like the bones of a great creature. Men gather their shirts damp with sweat, and women bring baskets of bread and cider, the air sweetened by the faint temps of fermented apples. The frame is raised by hand, ropes and pulleys creaking as the beams are lifted into place. The men call out in unison, their voices steady, guiding each post into its mortise, the joints secured with wooden pegs driven deep with mallets. The sound thud creak, thuds, a rhythm as familiar as the weaver's loom, a heartbeat of creation. Children watch from the edges, their laughter soft, while the minister offers a prayer, his words a quiet blessing over the work. The walls come next, a process slower but no less deliberate. The men nail clapboards to the frame, thin planks of oak split by hand, their edges overlapping to keep out the wind. The work is exacting. A poorly placed board can let in drafts, chilling the congregation during long winter sermons. The roof is covered with cedar shingles, each one cut and nailed with care, the air filled with the woody scent of fresh-cut wood. Inside, the floor is packed earth at first, to be replaced later with wide pine boards, their surface polished by years of footsteps. The pews, simple benches without cushions, are built to seat the community in orderly rows, their wood smooth to avoid splinters, but left plain, a reflection of Puritan restraint. The construction is not without its challenges. The New England weather is unpredictable, and rain can turn the site to mud, slowing progress. Imagine a morning when the sky darkens, and the workers huddle under tarps, the air damp with the smell of wet wool. Tools, brake-hand, axe handle, snaps, a saw doles and materials are scarce, forcing the carpenter to barter for nails or borrow timber from a neighboring town. The labor is heavy, and the men tire, their hands blistered, their backs aching from lifting beams. Yet they press on, driven by a shared purpose and the knowledge that the meeting house will stand as their legacy. The community's involvement extends beyond the men. Women contribute by spinning thread for ropes or sewing cloth for the bell tower's pulley system, their hands as busy as the weavers. Children gather kindling for the carpenter's fires, their small footsteps pattering across the green. Even the poorest, like the indentured servants we met, are called to help, their labor a tax paid in sweat rather than coin. The effort is a mirror of the colony's spirit, cooperative, devout, and resolute, yet tempered by the constant struggle against scarcity and the elements. When the meeting house is complete, imagine the first gathering. The bell, cast in England and hung with care, rings out, its clear tone echoing across the village. The congregation files in, their boots scuffing the new floor, the air cool and scented with pine. The minister, standing at a plain pulpit, delivers a sermon on unity, his voice resonating in the high-ceilinged space. The building is more than a church. It is where marriages are solemnized, disputes settled, and news shared. It is where the community gathers to mourn those lost to illness or to celebrate a bountiful harvest. Its walls, though simple, hold the weight of their hopes, a sanctuary in a world of uncertainty. The meeting house stands as a testament to the colony's ingenuity, its construction a blend of English tradition and New World necessity. It is not the grandest structure, lacking the marble of the governor's mansion or the vastness of later cathedrals, but it is enough. A place built by many hands for a shared purpose. Its timbers hewn from the forest and its nails forged in a local smithy are a reminder of the labor that binds the community, much like the weaver's cloth or the merchant's cargo. As you imagine sitting in one of those pews, the wood hard beneath you, the air still, you feel the quiet pride of a task completed. The meeting house, with its unadorned walls and steady presence, is a symbol of endurance, a structure meant to outlast those who built it. Let us leave the meeting house now, its bells silent in the evening air. Our journey through colonial America continues, and we turn next to a quieter art, one that soothed both body and soul. Picture a colonial kitchen, the air warm with the scent of herbs, where a healer tends to the ailments of a struggling village. As the bell of the newly built meeting house falls silent and the village green settles into the quiet of evening, let us step into a humbler space, where the air is thick with the scent of healing. Picture yourself in a small New England kitchen, sometime in the late 17th century, in a village much like the one where the weaver toiled. The room is warmed by a low fire, its embers casting a soft glow on a table strewn with dried herbs, a mortar and pestle, and a worn book of remedies. Here, a healer perhaps, a woman named Abigail, known for her skill with salves and prayers works to ease the ailments of her neighbors. In colonial America, medicine is a blend of science, folklore, and faith, a delicate balance between the practical and the spiritual. Settle in now, and let us wander through this world of healing, a soothing exploration of the remedies and beliefs that sustained a fragile community. Imagine the kitchen, its walls of rough-hewn pine, darkened by years of smoke. The air carries the sharp tang of dried chamomile, the earthy sweetness of sassafras, and the faint bitterness of willow bark simmering in a pot over the fire. Bunches of herbs, mint, lavender hang from the rafters, their leaves rustling softly as a draft slips through the unshuttered window. A single tallow candle flickers on the table, its light dancing across a collection of tools, a small knife for cutting roots, a cloth for straining infusions, a clay jar filled with honey to sweeten bitter draughts. This is Abigail's domain, a place where the community turns when illness strikes, when the weaver's cough lingers, or the servant's fever burns. Abigail is not a physician in the modern sense, for such men are rare in the colonies, their services reserved for the wealthy, like the governor in his mansion. Instead, she is a healer, often a midwife or a wise woman, her knowledge drawn from English traditions, native practices, and the hard-won experience of tending to a village's needs. Picture her, a woman in her 40s, her hands steady and lined from years of work, her apron stained with the green of crushed herbs. She moves with quiet purpose, her voice low and reassuring as she tends to a child with a fever, her touch a comfort in a world where sickness is a constant shadow. The remedies she employs are a tapestry of old and new, woven from the knowledge of 2 continents. Imagine her preparing a tea of willow bark for a farmer's aching joints, the liquid steaming in a pewter mug, its bitter scent mingling with the fire's warmth. The bark, boiled until it releases its essence, is a remedy passed down from English herbalists, though some say the native Powhatan taught the settlers its use. For a cough, she might mix honey with horehound, its sharp, minty flavor soothing the throat, or brew a decoction of sassafras, its spicy aroma a favorite among the colonists for purifying the blood. These treatments, grounded in observation, are as much art as science, their effectiveness a matter of hope and trial. But medicine in this era is inseparable from faith, and Abigail's work is steeped in the spiritual. Picture her tending to a young woman weakened by childbirth, her hands gently applying a poultice of comfrey to ease swelling. As she works, she murmurs a prayer, perhaps from the Psalms, asking for divine aid. The Puritans believe illness is a test from God, a call to repentance, and every remedy is paired with a plea for mercy. A charm might be whispered, a soft incantation to ward off fever-blending Christian devotion with older folk beliefs brought from England. The line between medicine and magic is blurred, and Abigail treads carefully, for the community, ever watchful, might see such practices as too close to witchcraft, a danger we glimpsed in Anne Hutchinson's trial. The ailments Abigail treats are many, for life in the colonies is unforgiving. Imagine a winter morning when a neighbor arrives, his breath visible in the cold air, seeking help for a child with a racking cough. The smallpox, a shadow that haunts every village, has passed through before, leaving families diminished, their grief a quiet weight. Abigail offers a syrup of molasses and herbs, her hands steady as she measures the dose. But she knows some battles are beyond her skill. Fevers, dysentery, and consumption claim lives with a swiftness that no remedy can halt, and the healer's role is often to comfort as much as to cure. When hope fades, she sits with the family, her presence a solace, her prayers a bridge between this world and the next. The native peoples of the region offer their own knowledge, and Abigail, like many healers, learns from them. Picture a moment when a Powhatan woman visits, bringing a basket of dried corn silk, known to ease kidney pains. The exchange is cautious, marked by the tensions of a divided land, but the knowledge is shared: a root for swelling, a bark for wounds. These remedies, tested by generations, blend with Abigail's own, creating a medicine that is uniquely colonial, a fusion of old worlds and new. The Healer's Book, a handwritten collection of recipes and prayers, grows with each encounter, its pages stained with the ink of experience. The tools of her trade are simple but vital. Imagine her mortar and pestle, its stone worn smooth from grinding herbs, or her small scales, used to weigh out precious ingredients like saffron, a rare import from the merchant's trade. A bleeding bowl, its rim chipped from use, sits on a shelf, for bloodletting is a common practice, believed to balance the body's humors. Abigail performs it sparingly, her knife making only the smallest incision, her touch gentle to ease the patient's fear. The practice, rooted in European medicine, is less common than herbs, but still part of her repertoire, a reminder of the era's limited understanding of the body's workings. The healer's life is one of constant demand, much like the weaver's or the servant's. She is called to homes at all hours, her cloak pulled tight against the night's chill as she hurries to a bedside. Her payment is often in a sack of flour, a length of cloth from the weaver's loom, or a promise of firewood. Her work binds the community, much like the meeting house, but it also isolates her, for her knowledge sets her apart. She must navigate suspicion, balancing her remedies with the church's teachings. Her skill, a gift that can be mistaken for something darker. Yet, there is a quiet pride in her role. Each fever cooled, each wound healed, is a small victory, a thread in the fabric of the village's survival. Her kitchen, with its herbs and firelight, is a sanctuary, a place where the community's fears are met with care. As you imagine her grinding chamomile late at night, the mortar's soft scrape blending with the crackle of the fire, you sense the rhythm of her life, a steady, soothing cadence, much like the almanac's proverbs or the meeting house's bell. Let us leave Abigail's kitchen now, the scent of herbs lingering in the air. Our journey through colonial America continues, and we turn next to a darker chapter, one that shook the faith of a community. Picture a courtroom in Salem, its benches filled with whispers, where fear and accusation cast a long shadow. As the heavy air of Salem's courtroom lifts, and the whispers of accusation fade into the evening stillness, let us step into a brighter moment in colonial America, where a community comes together in gratitude. Picture yourself in a New England village, perhaps Plymouth or one of its neighbors, in the autumn of the early 17th century, around 1621. The air is crisp, carrying the sweet scent of ripened corn and the smoky warmth of a bonfire flickering at the edge of the village green. This is the scene of a harvest festival, a time when the colonists pause their labors, whether weaving, planting, or building, to give thanks for the bounty of the land and the strength of their community. Unlike the dark tensions of the witch trials, this is a moment of shared joy, rooted in faith and survival. Settle in now, and let us wander through the roots of this festival, a soothing exploration of a tradition that echoes in our modern Thanksgiving. Imagine the village, its wooden houses clustered around a grassy common, their chimneys trailing thin threads of smoke into the twilight sky. The harvest has been gathered, the fields now bare, save for stubble and the last golden leaves of autumn. The year has been kind, a rare blessing after seasons of scarcity, and the colonists, still new to this rugged land, feel the weight of their survival. The festival, often called a Day of Thanksgiving, is not yet the formal holiday we know today, but a spontaneous gathering, born of English harvest traditions and shaped by the New World's challenges. It is a time to honor God's providence, to share the fruits of their labor, and to strengthen the bonds of a fragile community. Picture the preparations, which begin days in advance. Women, like the weaver we met, rise early, their kitchens filled with the aroma of baking bread and the earthy scent of root vegetables simmering in iron pots. They knead dough for cornbread, its grainy texture, a staple of the colonial diet, and roast pumpkins, their flesh sweet and soft from the fire. Men return from the hunt, their arms laden with game deer, wild turkey, perhaps a brace of ducks, while others bring baskets of corn, beans, and squash, gifts of the land taught to them by their native neighbors, the Wampanoag. The air is alive with the clatter of wooden spoons, the laughter of children, and the low hum of voices planning the feast. The festival itself unfolds on the village green, where long tables are set with rough planks and covered with linen cloths, some woven by hands like the weavers. Imagine the scene as dusk falls, the bonfire casting a warm glow across the gathered faces. The tables are laden with food, platters of roasted venison, its savory scent mingling with the tang of boiled cranberries. Bowls of succotash, a mix of corn and beans flavored with herbs, and pies of pumpkin or apple, sweetened with precious molasses from the merchant's trade. Cider, poured from heavy jugs, sparkles in wooden cups, its crisp, apple-sweet flavor a rare treat. The air carries the faint crackle of burning logs and the soft rustle of leaves skittering across the ground. The Wampanoag, led by their sachem Massasoit, are guests at this feast. Their presence a gesture of fragile peace. Picture them seated among the colonists, their deerskin clothing contrasting with the settlers' woolen coats and linen shifts. The Wampanoag bring their own contributions, perhaps fish roasted on cedar planks or baskets of chestnuts gathered from the forest. The meal is a moment of unity, though not without its tensions, for the relationship between the English and the native peoples is complex, marked by trade, mistrust, and the memory of earlier hardships. Yet, for this day, the focus is on shared abundance, a rare pause in a world of uncertainty. The festival is steeped in the Puritans' faith, a reflection of their belief that every harvest is a gift from God. Imagine the minister, perhaps William Bradford in Plymouth, standing to offer a prayer, his voice steady as he gives thanks for the land's bounty and the community's endurance. The words are simple, drawn from Scripture, their cadence familiar to those who fill the meeting house each Sunday. The congregation bows their heads, their hands clasped, the air still but for the fire's soft crackle. This act of thanksgiving is not just for the food but for survival itself, a recognition of the trials overcome harsh winters, failed crops, and the illnesses that linger in the healer's memory. The meal is accompanied by more than prayer. Picture the villagers sharing stories, their voices rising and falling in the firelight. A farmer recounts the planting of the first corn, guided by Squanto, a Wampanoag who taught the settlers to bury fish with the seeds, enriching the soil. A woman, perhaps the weaver, speaks of a bountiful flax harvest, her hands busy even now, mending a cloth for the table. Children chase each other around the fire, their laughter a bright thread in the evening's tapestry, while a fiddler plays a gentle tune, its notes drifting over the green. The music, simple and unadorned, echoes English folk songs, a reminder of a distant home now softened by the New World's embrace. The festival is not without its shadows, though we touch on them lightly. The abundance of this day stands in contrast to years of want, when hunger was a constant companion and the healer's remedies could not save all. The peace with the Wampanoag, celebrated here, will fray in later decades. As land disputes and cultural differences spark tensions we glimpse only in hindsight. Yet, for this moment, the focus is on gratitude, on the shared table that binds the community colonist and native, weaver and farmer, young and old. The festival is a fleeting reprieve, a chance to rest in the warmth of fellowship before the winter closes in. As the evening deepens, imagine the fire burning low, its embers glowing like stars against the dark. The tables are cleared, the leftovers saved for tomorrow's meals. and the villagers begin to drift to their homes, their lanterns casting soft pools of light on the path. The Wampanoag depart quietly, their figures fading into the forest, their own stories carried back to their villages. The minister's final prayer lingers in the air, a quiet hope for the seasons to come. This harvest festival, one of many in the colony's early years, plants the seed for a tradition that will grow, its roots deep in the soil of gratitude and survival. Picture yourself lingering by the dying fire, the air cool now, scented with wood smoke and the faint sweetness of spilled cider. The village is quiet, its people resting, their dreams filled with the promise of another harvest. This moment, simple and communal, is a thread in the colony's story, a counterpoint to the trials and labors we've seen. Let us leave the village green now, the fire's glow dimming into the night. Our journey through colonial America continues, and we turn next to a quieter, more somber world, one bound by toil and resilience. Picture a plantation in Virginia, where the lives of enslaved Africans unfold in the shadow of a growing colony. As the embers of the Harvest Festival's bonfire fade into the cool New England night, let us journey southward once more to the rolling fields of Virginia in the late 17th century. Picture yourself at the edge of a tobacco plantation, the air heavy with the sweet, earthy scent of curing leaves and the faint warmth of a summer evening. Here, far from the governor's candlelit mansion or the weaver's humble loom, live enslaved Africans, men and women whose labor underpins the colony's wealth. Their lives, bound by the weight of captivity, are a testament to endurance, their stories woven into the fabric of a growing world. Settle in now and let us wander through their days, a soothing exploration of toil, community, and the quiet strength that carried them through. Imagine the plantation, its fields stretching across acres of red clay soil, dotted with rows of tobacco plants, their broad leaves glistening with morning dew. Beyond the fields, a cluster of small cabins forms the quarters, their walls made of rough logs, their roofs thatched with straw. The air inside carries the faint mustiness of earth floors and the smoky warmth of a small hearth, a stark contrast to the governor's polished halls. These cabins, cramped and sparsely furnished with straw pallets and wooden benches, are home to dozens of enslaved people, their lives shaped by the relentless demands of the plantation's owner. You are not among them, but let us imagine you as an observer, watching the rhythm of their days unfold. Focus on a woman named Amara, perhaps in her late 20s, brought to Virginia from West Africa a decade ago. Her name, given by her family in a distant land, is rarely spoken here. The planter calls her Mary, a name that fits his ledger. She rises before dawn, the sky still dark as she steps outside, the air cool and scented with the faint bitterness of tobacco. Her clothing is simpler, linen shift and a head wrap, both worn from use, their fabric patched with care. Breakfast is meager, a handful of cornmeal mush or a scrap of salt pork, eaten quickly before the day's work begins. The labor is grueling, a cycle that mirrors the indentured servants, but without the promise of freedom. Picture Amara in the fields, her hands moving swiftly as she weeds tobacco plants, the soil clinging to her fingers, the sun warming her back until it burns. The plants require constant care, removing worms, pruning leaves, tying stalks, each task a test of endurance. The air hums with the soft chatter of others working nearby, their voices low, blending English with words from their homelands. Wolof, Igbo, Akin, the overseer, a shadow at the field's edge, watches closely, his presence a reminder of the constraints that bind their lives. The work extends beyond the fields. Imagine Amara in the curing barn, her hands deft as she hangs tobacco leaves to dry, the air thick with their pungent sweetness. Or picture her in the planter's kitchen, stirring a pot of hominy over a fire, the heat making her brow glisten. Women like Amara often serve in the great house, their tasks ranging from cooking to cleaning, their labor invisible yet essential to the governor's world of silver candelabras and fine dinners. Men might fell trees for fences or tend livestock, their muscles straining under the weight of logs or the stubbornness of a mule. The day stretches long, from dawn to dusk, the rhythm unbroken, save for a brief midday rest under an oak tree, its shade a fleeting refuge. The hardships of this life are many, though we speak of them gently. The quarters offer little comfort, their walls leaking in the rain, their hearths barely warming the winter chill. Illness, as we saw with the healer, is a constant threat. Fevers, dysentery, or injuries from labor claim lives too soon. Medical care is scarce, often limited to the planter's discretion. Though Amara and others draw on their own traditions, using herbs like okra or yams, learned from their ancestors or shared with the healer's remedies. The greatest weight is the loss of freedom, a burden that shapes every moment. Families are fragile, subject to the planter's will, and the fear of separation lingers, a quiet ache in the heart. Yet, within this hardship, there is resilience, a strength that blooms in small, defiant acts. Picture the quarters at night, the cabins lit by a single candle or the glow of a fire. Here, Amara and others gather, their voices soft as they share stories of their homeland's rivers that shimmer under a different sun, markets alive with color and song. Someone might hum a tune, its rhythm carried from Africa, the notes blending with the crackle of the fire. Another weaves a basket, her fingers moving with the skill of generations, the reeds twined into patterns that speak of home. These moments, fleeting but precious, are a reclamation of identity, a thread of culture that no chain can break. Community is their anchor. Imagine a Sunday when work pauses, not for the Puritan meeting house, but for their own gathering, perhaps hidden in a clearing beyond the planter's gaze. They dance, their feet tracing steps that echo distant villages, or tell tales of tricksters and spirits, their laughter a quiet rebellion. Amara might teach a child a few words in her language, a gift passed down like the weaver's cloth or the almanac's proverbs. Food, too, binds them dishes, like okra stew or cornbread, flavored with spices they grow in small garden plots, become a taste of resistance, a way to claim a piece of their lives. Their labor, though forced, shapes the colony as surely as the merchant's trade or the meeting house's timbers. The tobacco they cultivate fills ships bound for England, its wealth sustaining the governor's mansion and the printer's press. Their skills carpentry, cooking, weaving infuse the colony with resilience. Their knowledge of rice or indigo planting transforming the southern landscape. Yet their contributions are rarely acknowledged, their lives a shadow in the records that praise the planter's success. As you imagine Amara returning to her cabin, the night air cool against her skin, the stars above a reminder of a wider world, you sense the depth of her endurance. Her life, like the weaver's or the servant's, is one of labor, but it carries a unique weight, a story of survival woven with threads of memory and hope. Let us leave the quarters now, the firelight dimming into the night. Our journey through colonial America draws to a close, and we turn next to a reflection on the legacy of this world. Picture the colonies as a whole, their fields and towns, a tapestry of struggle and ambition. their echoes reaching into the present. As the firelight in the quarters fades and the quiet resilience of Amara's life settles into the Virginia night, let us step back from the fields, wharves, and meeting houses of colonial America to reflect on the world we've wandered through. Picture yourself no longer in a single village or plantation, but floating above the colonies, from the rocky shores of Massachusetts to the tobacco fields of Virginia in the late 17th and early 18th centuries. The landscape stretches below, a patchwork of forests, farms, and fledgling towns, its air alive with the scents of pine, smoke, and sea. This was a world of weavers, merchants, healers, and servants, a place of labor and hope, of faith and fracture. As we near the end of our journey, let us pause to consider the legacy of colonial America, a soothing meditation on the threads that wove this era into the fabric of the present. Imagine the colonies as they were, a scattering of settlements along the Atlantic coast, each one a fragile foothold in a vast and untamed land. The weaver's loom, with its steady clack, produced cloth that warmed families through harsh winters, a small act of creation that echoed the larger task of building a new society. The merchant's ship, laden with rum and molasses, tied these outposts to a global web, its sails catching the winds of ambition. The meeting house, raised by communal hands, stood as a symbol of faith and order, its bell calling the people to prayer and purpose. Even the healers, herbs, and the almanacs, proverbs, simple in their making, carried the weight of survival, offering comfort and wisdom in a world of uncertainty. These efforts, humble and human, laid the foundations for a nation. The colonies, though bound to England's crown, were already weaving their own identity. Consider the printing press, its pages spreading ideas of self-reliance and community, as we saw in Franklin's Poor Richard's Almanac. Its proverbs, like a penny saved is a penny earned, planted seeds of thrift and ingenuity that would grow into American ideals. The trade networks, stretching from Boston to Barbados, fostered a sense of connection, a shared economy that gave the colonies strength, even as it relied on the labor of indentured servants and enslaved Africans, whose toil shaped the land in ways both vital and unspoken. The meeting house, too, left its mark. Picture its plain walls, filled with the voices of a people seeking to govern themselves. The town meetings held there, where farmers and merchants debated laws and land, were early steps toward democracy, a practice that would evolve into the assemblies and congresses of a later era. The governor's mansion, with its candlelit dinners and delicate negotiations, hinted at the tensions of power between colony and crown, between elite and commoner, that would one day spark a revolution. Even the Salem witch trials, though a dark chapter, taught a lesson in caution, a reminder of the dangers of fear and division, shaping a society that would come to value justice, however imperfectly. The lives of the marginalized indentured servants, enslaved Africans form a crucial thread in this legacy. Imagine Amara's hands tying tobacco leaves or weaving a basket, her skills and stories blending African traditions with the New World's demands. The foods she cooked, the songs she sang, the resilience she carried enriched the colony's culture, leaving traces in the music, cuisine, and crafts that would define the American South. The indentured servants, like the weaver, brought their own hopes, their labor clearing fields and building towns that would outlast their contracts. Their struggles, though often erased from the records, were the bedrock of the colony's growth, a foundation as enduring as the meeting house's timbers. Yet, This legacy is not without its shadows, and we acknowledge them softly. The colony's prosperity rested on systems of hardship, enslavement, land disputes with native peoples, the exploitation of labor. The merchant's trade, so vital to survival, carried the weight of human cost, its molasses barrels tied to the plantation's cruelty. The harmony of the harvest festival, a moment of unity, was fleeting as tensions with the Wampanoag and other tribes grew, their lands encroached upon by the settlers' ambition. These complexities, woven into the colony's story, remind us that progress came at a price, a truth that lingers in the nation's memory. The mysteries we've explored, like Roanoke and Jamestown, speak to the fragility of beginnings. Picture the archaeologist's trowels, sifting through soil to uncover a musket ball or a broken pipe, each artifact a whisper from those who came before. Their findings remind us that history is not just a story of triumphs, but of endurance, of lives that faded into the earth, yet left echoes in the present. The colony's legacy is in the land itself, the fields cleared, the towns built, the rivers sailed it, a testament to the labor of countless hands. As you reflect on this world, imagine the colonies now, their villages growing into cities, their paths becoming roads, the weaver's cloth, the printer's pages, the healer's herbsol. These small acts built a foundation that reaches into your present, the ideals of community, resilience, and ingenuity. Born in the meeting house and the almanac still resonates, softened by time but enduring. The struggles to remind us of the cost of progress, a lesson carried forward in the nation's ongoing story. Picture yourself now, not in a colonial cabin or field, but in your own place of rest, the world quiet around you. The colonies, with their hardships and hopes, are distant, their echoes carried on the wind. As you drift toward sleep, let the rhythm of their lives, the clack of the loom, the creak of the ship, the toll of the bell, become a gentle lullaby, a reminder of the human spirit's quiet strength. Let us linger here a moment, the colony's story settling into silence. Our journey through this world is nearly complete, but before we part, let us weave these threads into a final reflection, a gentle farewell to the past and a bridge to the peace of your present.